meetings might be a way of assuring better attendance.
Yeah, the state adopted, I forget when the law changed, but it must be about 15 years ago, provisions for remote participation. And back then it was like allowing for a conference call to be done. And, so this has really supersized the entire state legislation on the whole thing too. And, it's a good way to get things done. So.
Yeah, the Cape Light Compact with its Martha's Vineyard representatives couldn't operate without it.
All right, yeah. It says live on YouTube, Rich.
Okay, I think we are ready.
Okay, thank you. Well, the April Energy Committee, for the very first one of our members to make a motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in. Okay, we're in business. Begin by introducing members of the. Do we show any members of the public?
See any offhand? Rich, you see anybody?
Barry,
Hey, Barry. Okay, Barry Margolin. I think you might be the only member of the public, Barry.
On the Zoom screen, I believe that's true.
Okay, well, welcome.
Joyce, do you see a 508-398-2231 number?
yes.
That's Town Hall.
Okay.
So I'd like to give the floor in the last meeting minutes.
There was just one change made, and deleted a sentence that was not correct. And so then I resent it out, and I believe there's a copy of it.
Yes. Approve.
Second.
The discussion, if not, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Cape Light Compact update. Another Zoom meeting. The Act will be having its very first all Zoom meeting tomorrow. That's it, from 2 to 4:30. And if you get in touch with me, I'll be glad to give you information on that, but you can also find it on the Cape Light Compact website. The other news about the Cape Light Compact is that unfortunately, the coronavirus shutdown means still no in-home energy audits and still no in-home weatherization, but virtual energy audits are being planned. If you want further details on that, our call center is open, and that's 800-797-6699. So that's it for the compact this month. Steve Gavin, are you there with CVEC News?
Yes, I am.
Oh,
One question,
Steve.
Joyce. How do you do a virtual energy audit?
Well, you get all the data from the house, from their energy use, and you get the floor plan, and you find out what the foundation is made out of, and you kind of estimate therms. I mean, you'll have an exact notion of how much they're paying for, but you estimate how many therms could be saved. Obviously, for electricity, it's easy. You got the electric bill, but you can assume if you get feedback about what the lighting arrangements are, that there could be some reductions. But most everyone, I think, in the Cape Light Compact territory is already using more efficient lighting. Any news from CVEC?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes,
We can see you too.
we can see you, Steve.
Oh, very
Oh.
good. Okay, two items. One is concerning parcel E, at the septic treatment facility. There's an action that's required on the part of the Board of Health to move that forward. So I'm going to talk to the chair of the committee, that's Hill Bosky. But what I would seek would be an item on the agenda to move the approval by the Board of Health forward for this activity.
Steve, if I might, Joyce,
Yes.
To how much degree, and Rich maybe has an answer to that, has the Board of Health been briefed on what our situation there is?
Yes, Liz Argo has spoken to them.
Okay,
And I know there was she told me that the planning board also, or the planning commissioner within town has spoken to them. So I think it's just, I know we're in a difficult time right now, but we need to move this forward.
yeah, I was gonna reach out to Hillard because we talk to him every day anyways to see if we couldn't get that on an agenda and facilitate it with the consultant.
So
Okay,
Steve,
the other item is CVEC is looking to put together a round 6. And there are a number of towns that have an interest in it. I had mentioned to Joyce and briefly to the board members that we had the new DPW facility. We've had an interest in some of the training facility at for the police department. There were a couple of items I know that you had gone over, Dan, at our February 4th meeting. So what I would do would be to, if you'd like, sit down with you or virtually sit down with you and Liz, and maybe go over a list of items that we can include in that, begin to include in the RFP.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great. The new DPW building, the rooftop's gonna be built
To
with capability to do that, so.
Yeah. So it'll be a period of time to put this together, develop the bids, go out to the potential bidders. So I know we have time, to in terms of the construction of the DPW to accomplish that. Okay, that's it for CVEC.
Okay, any questions for Steve? Okay, if not, moving on. If either of our town administrators would like to say anything about the current status of town energy efficiency, we'd love to hear it, but we understand that you're quite busy and may not have time for it.
No, we can give you an update briefly. I can tell you that the vendor from Rise has, I don't know if he's finished it yet, but was busy prior to this event installing the thermostats in the town building to control the unit ventilators.
Uh-huh.
Which I can already tell you, that from a person that spends a lot of time in town hall, having that thermostat set is greatly helpful for just general comfort. You can set the button at 72 degrees or 70 or whatever and not think about it for the rest of the day. And then once we get them fully programmed, the setbacks would be, down around 65 or lower. And it'll just be a better situation, but it's already nice to have,
Oh, good.
Yeah.
The one thing I can't figure out is how to save on electricity when I've finally recognized that the leaving lights on in an office when one goes out to the restroom or a meeting is kind of the signal that you're in.
Yeah.
I don't mean you, I mean everybody seems to do that, but we'll ponder other kind of signals to indicate that one is in for the day.
Well, it's interesting that of all the work that we've done over the course of time, that we haven't done a lot of switch work as it relates sensor devices for that. Because I agree with you that I leave the building a lot of times and there's lights on at night.
I confess I've even violated the men's room when I was leaving the building and I saw that there were still lights on there. I went in and turned them off.
You're supposed to keep that kind of crime to yourself.
Oh no, and now it's gone out to the police.
Right.
Joyce, I would say, Dan didn't speak to, we've been going through a municipal vulnerability preparedness project. It's a grant that we received, and they're evaluating essentially at our 50 Workshop Road and our sanitation site, as well as over at the Fire Station 3 and with the new DPW facility, taking those facilities and using solar PV to make them energy independent with battery storage. Was it up to 2 weeks, I think, Dan?
Yeah, about 10 days.
10 days. And so that planning grant is underway. They're making good progress, and that could result in the opportunity when we get the planning work done to apply for an implementation grant, which provides up to $2 million to actually implement their recommendations. So that would be solar PV at Station 3, ground mounts, rooftop on the DPW facility, and potentially some additional solar over at our Workshop Road sites.
Oh, thank you. That's good news. Any questions for Dan or from Rich or for Rich about town energy issues?
I was wondering, are they continuing with construction on the new building, or has that halted?
No, it's still going strong. They're way ahead, you know, they had a great winter and there's no slowdown in sight. I think we're gonna be in good shape, so for
Good.
early opening. Yep.
The only other thing I would add, Joyce, is that our two electric vehicles, our Leafs, are now in operation and the charging stations are operational. So finally you have that moving forward, and we can look forward to doing some more once we get out of our current situation.
Thank you, Rich. And are they leased vehicles in inspectional services then?
Well, we have to work out exactly how it's going to work, but right now the finance department, the assessors are using the vehicle. And we anticipated our conservation administrator might also be using the vehicle.
Ooh,
Okay, thank you.
We'll work the inspectional staff in with some future acquisitions.
Okay.
Joyce, can I ask these guys a couple questions?
Oh, sure.
Great. I don't know if today is the right time, Rich, but when Barry and I talked to Dan Knapek, we were saying that we'd love to get, that our energy committee meeting last month said that we would love to kind of get a, either interview you to get the information or have you give us the written information that summarizes all the energy improvements that have been made for the towns, so that we can share that with the public when we talk about the climate emergency or when we talk about Solarize. So is there anything that's been, have you summarized that any place? And
I would love to summarize it. I just haven't been able to do that yet, but
yeah, I can imagine.
I know you've been talking about it, so I'll be happy to get on that at some point. It's something we need to do anyway. We've done a lot and we've got plans to do a lot more, so we can work on putting something together.
Yeah, I can send you what Jim Wolf has gotten for us from CVEC with just a, a short update on a couple things, get you started, but I'm happy to help with that. If I just, if you need me to meet with you and listen and write as you talk or whatever, let me know. Or
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we could work together on pulling this together.
okay, I'll be in touch with you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Rich or for Dan? Okay, moving on. Next up is the report on YCAN, the Yarmouth Climate Action Network, and what they've been up to. And Susan, you're up for that.
Great. So, and Barry, you might want to come off of mute too to
Okay, go ahead, Barry.
if the Barry part could be, Barry, if you want to tell us what your and Sheila's meeting was like with Dan, the moderator.
Sure. I mean, the two issues that we needed to run through with him were our intention to substitute language framing the climate emergency declaration as a resolution rather than a bylaw, which won't be a problem. It's just a motion when that article comes up in the agenda, whenever that might happen. We're hoping that a high school student who lives in Yarmouth will be able to speak, and that wasn't, it was clear that wouldn't be a problem either.
Great. So that really answers the question that we had last month about, what would Dan, the moderator, say to us about whether we could have youth? So yes, as he's saying, we can. He's also really interested in supporting us beyond his being in this role that he's in right now. And Ken Moody, who's on the finance committee, is going to take that, is going to step up to be the moderator in the future or be elected, hopefully elected for it. Another thing then is that we met with Dan Nathic, our other Dan, and Dan, I don't know if you want to give us any sense of your support for the Yarmouth Climate Action resolution.
Yeah, thanks, Susan. I think this first step in this topic, because I don't know how many, I forget how many towns they told us this will appear in front of, but the resolution
All
progress,
towns.
is it 12? Yeah. Is a better way to go than a bylaw, you know, so we've made great strides as a town in the last 4 years on this topic. We're committed over the next 5 years to reduce energy anyways to a 20% reduction. So we're moving at a pretty significant pace that way. And I can tell you the new Mattakey School building is been designed with taking advantage of as many what I would call opportunities for proper orientation of the site as it relates to the sun to allow heating and cooling to be the most efficient possible. And then they went in and did the engineering associated with the mechanical devices and whatnot. So I think from a design perspective, it would be nice to be able to have that as a resolution. So if we were to do another project in the future, it could be clearly stated that as part of the deliverables by the engineering team, the alternative cost estimate should be provided as it relates to get to a net zero energy building. So it's a good first step, and eventually, I'm sure at some point in the not too distant future, it'll end up becoming some kind of bylaw, probably in the same 12 towns.
Really, I think it's Barry, is it all towns now? I meant to say all towns, but is that true?
Yes, yeah, it will come up in all towns. Barnstable obviously has a town council system, so there's a group of councilors working on a parallel track to enact it in Barnstable.
So if we could turn the clock back just maybe 18 months ago or so, if that had been a resolution at that time and it was on the books, we would have designed the DPW building with that language in there, and we would know what the cost delta would be operationally. So it's like I said, it's one of those things where the energy code is pretty conservative now as it relates. So depending upon the town that you're in, I mean, some have in a good position to take this on more than others. And I think as green communities takes hold further and further on the Cape, it just becomes the next natural step to take on. So should be good.
Yeah. One of the things I really got out of that meeting with you, Dan, afterwards is that when we're talking to other committees, to really say, we're asking you, town committee, to help us help you. Because like what you were saying to us and you're saying right now too, is it helps when we get grassroots people
Oh, yes.
up and speak up and say, this is really important. We need to be prepared to invest.
Yeah.
This resolution is not asking for any monetary decision to be made at the moment, but just to engage the public to say, this is here, folks.
Yep.
So we need town committees and town leaders to support us while we're trying to build the energy amongst the residents.
Yeah, it's always better to have it come from the grassroots population than it is from the top down, for sure.
Yeah. So tomorrow, the news for me to share. So tomorrow, Barry and I and Jim Wolf, who is from, he's the director of sustainability at Cape Air, also happens to be Dan Wolf's brother. The three of us are meeting with the finance committee. So Ed, I don't know if you have any thoughts that you want to share with us to prepare for that meeting, but we're basically just going to be on for, maybe 10 minutes at the most, I would imagine, letting them know what the resolution is and why, and what we think the business case for it, is. And even though we don't truly know when town meeting is going to be, now it's rescheduled for, is it May 19th?
May 19th, yeah.
Yeah, and who knows if that date will stick or not, but we're very grateful to be able to meet with the finance committee to just get a sense of what else they would need to know from us and how supportive or doubtful they are about the effort. Given that it's the the COVID-19 pandemic times, it's wild to be talking about another emergency. So we need to have our language straight about how we want to talk about the climate emergency, and tomorrow's meeting should help. Barry, do you have anything else you want to say about that? Or
Just to update that as of last night in Eastham, now 7 of the boards of select people have endorsed the respective resolutions. That's in Mashpee, Falmouth, Dennis, Brewster, Chatham, Truro, and Falmouth. And that's in the face of obviously the challenge logistically of getting into those meetings. But, so far, none of the boards that have met on it have declined to support it.
and is there any particular articulation of their support that would help us to know that this is how it's being responded to? Barry, do you have anything you can say? It's like, here's why they're supportive, or here's the responses they're offering?
No, I mean, I haven't been in any of those other meetings that folks in each town are handling this, but I assume this is the policy of the Commonwealth. It's the policy of the Cape Cod Commission. It's kind of the easy part to agree that we just want the public to be in on that agreement, that this has got to be our goal.
Great. I wonder if Tara or Rich or Ed or Dan, any of the town staff have anything that you can clue us into about what you think the finance committee, or right after that, it will be talking to the Board of Selectmen. Do you have any tips for us?
Well, I think, usually with the finance committee, when anybody comes in front of them on these petitions, they first want to know if there'll be any financial impact to the town and what that might be, like upfront. And then from there, it's usually more a matter of explaining, what exactly is being asked of the town, so that they can get a better understanding if they'll support it or not. So I think in general, because it's being approached as a resolution as opposed to a bylaw, it's a easier discussion to ease into with the boards,
Yeah.
Okay, Susan, is there anything else anybody would like to add with YCAN?
Rich looks like he's about to start sharing screen share.
Yeah, just put the agenda back up.
Oh, okay. Great. I think we're
Okay,
done then.
well, thank you, Susan. Thank you, Barry. Our next item on the agenda is Energy Committee's proposed 5-year plan. And Mike Duffy last time outlined some goal setting, and we said that we would think about it and come back to it this next meeting. And then, of course, everything changed, and here we are in a remote meeting. Mike, you want to put up your slides?
I didn't have slides for that. And
Oh, you did last time. I remember a big slide.
yeah, I did last time. Well, I wasn't prepared. Let me see if I can. I had asked you and Sandra to get together so I could test out whether my slide stuff would work or not. And I never heard back from you. So let me see.
I thought that was all set.
All right. Well, this was the one.
The
Well,
slides are on the agenda. If everybody has the agenda, they can minimize their screens and look to the left, or if Rich can get the agenda, at the bottom is the slide presentations.
Can
There it
people
is.
see
Thanks.
my-
The
can people
solar
see my
presentation.
slide now?
Not quite yet, but I guess we're about to.
Well,
Are we asking Mike to share his screen? Which is something you can do at the bottom if you scroll scroll, you light up a
This
bottom.
is Rich. I allowed participants sharing.
let's see. You got it? Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can you read it? Is it too
Just pinch it
small?
out for bigger.
Ye-
Even I can read it.
Let me see. Read it now.
Yep.
Well, this was kind of
Mike, instead
an
of doing a
overview summary. of
PPT,
what that-
do the show, not the shots of the screen. Can you go to the bottom and set up your PowerPoint presentation itself?
Wait a minute. So you don't see the slide now?
Oh, we do.
But
Yeah,
it's
you want to do it on PowerPoint show, though.
A slideshow.
on the bottom, there should be a little screen on the bottom right.
It's on his, it's on the left.
Oh. On the bottom of the Zoom screen?
No, well,
On your screen.
Yeah, I don't
There's-
have it there. I had a green thing before that said to share. That's the
Oh.
only thing.
maybe try where it says slideshow.
That's, I mean, that's
If you
powerful.
go to the slideshow and, well, on the far left, there should
Yeah.
be some, a tab that shows you that to show the whole presentation.
There you go.
Here we go.
There, great.
Well, okay, that was one, okay. So for those who weren't around last month, I kind of got it in my mind that it would be nice for the Energy Committee to create a plan. And then once we had a plan, we could work to the plan. So I put together a draft, which all the Energy Committee members got last time. And seemed to be interest in having such a plan for the committee. So my suggestion now is that this was, why do we need a plan? Those of you who didn't see this last time would like to be able to set direction and priorities for the Energy Committee. And you'll see in the next slide, I came up with my own definition of what our vision, mission, and goals should be. Under the assumption that it's easier to critique than construct. I thought I'd put those together and send it around to the committee members, see if they wanted to critique them. I wanted to basically identify what we should be working on, be able to prioritize those activities, and most important, provide a means for measuring our success over the years. Also, such a plan would get everybody on the same page, so if anybody was asked, what's your mission? At least everybody would have a written down statement of what the mission of the Energy Committee was. Hopefully it would simplify decision-making with regard to us undertaking new projects, especially since we have scarce resources, all volunteers. And finally, to be able to communicate our message throughout town hall and also throughout the community. So this kind of has an overview of what that plan contains. I don't know what it was, a 3 or 4 page document, but starting with a vision of what at least I saw the Energy Committee to be: a strong and prosperous town that is powered by clean, affordable, and secure energy. So that would be the vision for the Energy Committee, to try to make that vision come into being. In order to bring that vision into being, I put together this mission statement to inspire energy sustainability throughout the town. I can't read all this because some of the, okay. Throughout the town of Yarmouth, municipal buildings, schools, commercial businesses, residential homes, and transportation vehicles. So in order to accomplish that mission, I came up with 3 strategic goals for us. One, these are obviously subject to change, but there's something for everybody to react to. Reduce the energy consumption with Yarmouth by 20% by 2025. That's 20% from our base year, which would have been, I don't know, if we go on a fiscal year basis, let's say fiscal year 2019/2020. Goal 2, increase the use of renewable energy within Yarmouth by 20% by 2025. And then a third goal, which at least we in the Energy Committee have never talked a whole lot about, but it's to achieve 1,000 zero emission vehicles in Yarmouth by 2025. The way I came up with that 1,000 goal is the state has a goal, what's it called? EV support or something like that. They have a goal of achieving so many electric vehicles within the state by 2025. So on a population basis, I figured that, okay, for us to do our fair share, we would have to come up with about 1,000. Okay. So then, you can read over in there what some of the strategies for achieving these individual goals are and what the success measures would be to show us how we're doing. And all of this within the plan would be guided by 3 core principles: affordability, reduced environmental impact, and consumer choice. That is, give the consumers the choice for what they want to do, let's say, with regard to how they may want to become more energy efficient, or what types of renewable energy they might be interested in, or even what type of electric vehicle they might be interested in. So my proposal here today is I would be asking the Energy Committee members over the next 2 months to review that plan, to email me any suggestions they might have, corrections, omissions, additions, deletions, and I will assemble this. And what I'd like us to be able to do is by our July meeting, which is the start of the new fiscal year, have an actual final 5-year plan that tells everybody what the Energy Committee is looking at doing over the next 5 years. So that's where I stand on that. Any comments?
Yes.
Any
Yeah, really good
questions
work.
for Mike? Any thoughts on this?
Well, our committee has generally worked on municipal activities in the energy area. You're proposing for us to do much more with residents and businesses. Am I correct in your, and
Yeah,
the cars people
and
drive?
the solarized program is going to be addressing specifically residents and small businesses. Right?
Yes, exactly.
And of course, I mean, but we're here, I guess we're here to support the Board of Selectmen. So I'd certainly like to hear from the Board of Selectmen anything they may have in terms of what they would like to see accomplished next year, the year after, over a 5-year time frame, if they could.
I think it would be helpful to give them something to think about in advance of their official activity associated with that. So if they're aware of what it is the committee would like to see, they can better incorporate those very specific metrics into their own goal-setting activity.
Okay, it's a good idea. What I'd suggest is the Energy Committees get any feedback to me before our next meeting in May. And then by the end of May, I would turn that around and would have a draft to submit to the Board of Selectmen for their perusal, if you will, and reaction before we would come out with a final plan, hopefully in July.
Seems to me that some innovative thinking might help that last point under number 3 about the 1,000 electric vehicles. And that might be something that as we work on Solarize Plus, we might run into some people who'd be interested in installing electric charging stations for a discount if enough people in Yarmouth wanted them.
Yeah, once we get out beating the bushes with regard to Solarize Plus, somebody would have put in install a solar system, the electric vehicle would be the next step that would be, I guess, go along with it very well. Barry's found that out, right, Barry?
Yup.
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
any
anyways,
other,
that's all I want.
go ahead, Steve. Oh. Okay, any other thoughts on this that you'd like to share with Mike now?
Well, I don't know if it's related or not, but I know that over here at Kingsway, the Heatherwood people are looking at putting in a charging station over there. I'm not sure how we go about that, but there should be enough electric vehicles in here that may be a viable idea.
Well, that would put us, a good step on the way to the 1,000.
Yes.
Is there a cart and horse effect here? People will, if there are charging stations and no electric vehicles there, if you put charging stations in, more people will be likely to, purchase an electric vehicle.
That's a good question.
Well, I think the people that would have them are probably not going to drive off Cape very often. So that I think the range that you could get by overnight charging it in your own garage would be more than sufficient. Is that right, Barry, with yours?
Right. I think I've had to charge off Cape twice since I've had the car, which is since just about almost a year now.
What range do you get?
It's about 250 miles optimum. That assumes you don't need a lot of heating or air conditioning.
And you didn't put in any special charger in your house, did you?
No, I did. I put what's called a level 2 charger, which is 220 volt charger. Just charging on house current takes about 20 hours to fully charge a car. Charging at the level 2 gets it done in 6 hours. So it's an overnight charge, and it was only about $500 to get that charger. So if you're going to buy an electric car, you're probably going to want a charger.
Okay.
Especially when you have a solar roof like you do.
Steve, do you have is there a condo association over there at Kingsway?
The whole thing is condos.
Yeah, so, it might be worth just talking directly with our Eversource rep. We have a rep, I can email you her information.
Okay.
Because having a mass of cars there might fit in well with their overall plan to reduce energy consumption. So that might be something they would take on as a direct to the condo project.
That would be good, because I've been speaking with somebody who's begun some initial inquiries, but if you could give me the name of somebody, that would be probably more helpful.
Yeah, I'll send, if you can just send me an email reminder, I can give you her contact info tomorrow.
I'll do that after.
And Mike, my comment for the moment is I think this is phenomenal, and it really shows us stepping up to a whole new role in a lot of ways that with the climate emergency that we're saying that we're in, that we understand that we're in. And the one thing I think we need is for Joyce and all of us to then also integrate our current role and our current goals in, because like Bob was saying, this is kind of like all the new stuff, but we need to bring along our traditional role. So I don't know, Joyce, if you have a sense
Write
of
those
that.
down. You could write those down. I'd be happy to include them.
Yes, you don't need to do all the work.
But Mike did give us a good caveat last time that we won't, unless we write what we want to do down, we are less likely to do it and have it clear in our minds. So Mike, thank you for doing this.
Right. Actually, I think one of my favorite sayings is if you can't write it down, you don't understand it. So.
Well said.
Okay, any other questions for Mike on this or comments?
I just think he's done some great work. It shouldn't go unnoticed. Just great.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
that's
thank you, Mike. Our next agenda item has you up again, Mike, with your solar co-coach, Steve Krinsman. for a discussion of the shifting calendar for Solarize Plus, a possible shifting calendar. Why don't you give us your thoughts on that?
Okay, I got another set of slides here I wanted to bring up. Ah, here they are. Who brought them up? Somebody brought them up for me. Okay.
Wasn't me.
Let's see.
Big Brother is watching you, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. As we all know, the Solarize Plus is kind of in a state of chaos, I would say. I don't know who's controlling the slides. Can you give me the next one? Yeah. So obviously this pandemic has wreaked havoc with our proposed schedule for marketing and installing PV and air source heat pump systems. And as Steve, my co-coach, rightfully said last time, we only get one chance to do this, so we want to do it right. But the question becomes, should we delay installations until 2021, but continue to put things that we can do in place as soon as we can? That's get educated, maybe write out some things, develop the email lists, things of that sort. So the next slide, please. Okay, what I've done was the Mass CEC folks have a best practices timeline. And what they actually do in that timeline is outline the duties that are expected of both the municipal representative, the solar coaches, and then the installer. So what I've done here is laid out right. The first, I got a series of 3 slides here. First one here is for the municipal representative. And what I've done was I've broken out these months, April through September. And the CEC talks in terms of weeks, basically weeks after you sign a contract, I think. They go from week 1 to week 16, and then to the end of the program, which is installations from week 16 on. So we can, this is probably a good one to look at. We're on the solar coach here now. And I think virtually all of the tasks that as expected of the municipal reps are also expected of the community solar coach. So what I would do is I'd just bring your attention here. I'm just saying, okay, we're into April, and as far as I'm concerned, that's week 1 of this Solarize effort. And there's a number of things that, you know, they had expected us to do. And those, if they're not done, they can be done very easily. When we start getting into problems is in May, down at the bottom, which is develop the installer RFP. I don't know that we'll be in a position in May to be able to do that or not, quite frankly. Based on our call with Lisa and the folks up there at CEC, seems like some of the installers are working, some aren't, some are receptive to doing this now, some aren't. So at the very best, I think we'd probably get a reduced number of installers who would be interested in pursuing this with us. So at any rate, in May, to develop the installer RFP, the next big thing really is then in July, it shows we would be selecting 3 or 4 of those installers who had proposed for interviews to ultimately select the top scoring installers. And basically that would say over here in August and weeks, sometime in the weeks 12 to 14 timeframe, we would actually choose an installer. Then we don't provide an initial interests contact list to the installer until somewhere early to mid-September. So my observation and question to the rest of the Energy Committee folks, and also Dan and Rich, is that if we're not going to be able to install anything at the earliest in September, that this makes sense. People who want PV installations, they want it primarily to cool their places down here on the Cape, June, July, and August. So, I mean, I look at this potential schedule here and say, you know, I think we should delay until 2021 and do what we can on here, get it in place so that come January or February, we hit the road running and get the installer with a list of contacts sometime in May of 2021. Any reactions?
Well, I think this construction work can be done under the present governor's guidelines. So I would generally be very supportive of trying to go headlong and get this done over the summertime.
I think, yeah, I think it, I don't think we'd go out and be able to get enough people that would be interested. I mean, it's gonna be at the earliest August until potential people could interact with the installer. According to, again, these are the best practice timelines that CEC has put together, presumably based on their experience over the last 8 or 9 years of running these programs.
Like, I don't know if there's always issues related to installers responding and completing work. And I don't know, trying to line it up in the winter to have it in place for the summer, we should worry too much about that. I think the main thing is to get it done, but I guess my larger concern is, are we going to be effective in getting a response and rolling this out? And so I don't know about a long delay, but perhaps a delay of a month or so would be appropriate. And did the CEC staff indicate that they'd be willing to extend?
They were looking into whether they were going to come up, I think, with their own independent decision to delay it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is that I know I'm not allowing any service folks into the house at this point unless it is a, you know, health and safety emergency. And maybe I am more defensive than the average household, but I'm not sure that's the case. Most of the folks I know seem pretty worried. And both in terms of our going out and marketing to folks, persuading them that they want to, you know, look at solar now. They're letting a solar company come in even to scope out the project. And I guess my read of the larger circumstances is none of that's going to get more normal before the fall, and in the best case.
And this, well, the schedule here is the installers would be doing that work in the fall. So it's early fall. So I guess my contemplation here is if we just push that back a month or 2 or 3, then it's happening late fall or early winter. And that
Well,
but it takes,
time it actually gets done, it might be in place for the spring.
but it takes a fair amount of conversation with the homeowner, and based on my own experience of planning the solar installation in my house a couple of years ago. There were a lot of meetings in the house first.
Yeah, but those don't happen until we've selected somebody, and that's a several-month process. Guess what I'm saying is, so under the current timeline that Mike's illustrated here, and is September is when they're first getting, is the first time that the installers are getting the contacts. So that process isn't happening till the fall. Now, September might be a little early, but you know, maybe a little bit later in the calendar year might not be. We could do all the groundwork and line them up. I don't think anybody's really all that responsive right now, but in another couple months, if we delayed it, the kickoff of it. This is all groundwork at this point.
The thing is, Rich, to generate that initial interest contact list, what we would have been doing was meeting with a lot of people in groups, certainly
Oh, that's
groups
true,
of
right.
more than 10 people, which who knows when we'll be able to do anything like that. The other thing is, at least what I'm seeing is the availability of the PV panels and whatnot, most of which come from China, I guess, that may not be available. And there may be a shortage yet this year on them, which would also drive the price up. So there's two competing interests here. One is, what is it? The federal tax credit goes down, the percentage goes down after this year, unless they change it as a result of the pandemic. But the price of the materials is likely to go up. So I don't know, that's just another reason. I think, you know, if we do this, we certainly would want to maximize the number of installations we could get. And I don't think the current situation would allow us to maximize that number.
There's just too much work to be done before we can even contact people. We don't have prices, we don't have installers, and I'm not sure when we're going to be able to go out and get them. Just my opinion. I mean,
have
there's
a
no point in
question.
rushing it if we screw it up.
But there's also got to be a price of an outreach period where we're just sensitizing more people to the idea of installing solar. And instead of that being at physical events where people are physically present, we're going to have to rely on electronic, if you will, sources.
Electronic or newspaper articles.
Yeah, and email lists. You were at one point, Rich, said that you had a list of all those people who already have solar in the town.
Yeah, there is a list. I have to go back now and find it, but yeah, we do have such a resource. But I think, I know, Mike, you've recently talked with the CEC, so it sounds like, I suspect that they're probably coming up with guidelines about how they're going to be operating this program in the near term.
They, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Joyce and even Steve, but I got the impression from them that they would be receptive, or at least willing to extend this into the 2021 year. Now, picking
I
up
got
on
that
what
same
Bob
impression.
just said, that I would suggest that we continue with the outreach. I don't know when we started. I would say we started when things kind of get back somewhat to normal, and kind of alert people that, hey, this is coming. Just wait till next year. You know, what we're going to give you, and you know, hit them in February or something like that. The full-blown effort.
Now, I think the timing differs between the Solarize program and the Heat Smart program, where I think the cooling aspect is more important in our selling of the idea of people installing heat pumps. Mike, you've made the point that the selling point of these pumps is going to be as much cooling as it is heating. And I think the timing that you're talking about is more sensitive to the seasonal aspect than the Solarize is.
Mike, I have a question in regard to what was mentioned before that kind of links up to Bob's question. And I wondered, what's the maximum time frame for which we can have an RFP? I mean, could we do our RFP on time and be giving people who were installers until, say, April 30th of 2021 to finish the last installation? I mean, is there any point in going ahead with the installer RFP? And then at least be able to tell people that we have installers and be able to start getting prices for them?
Suppose we could pursue that if the installers were willing to extend their bid price so far into the future. I don't know.
My recollection was that what the folks from CEC said was that they didn't think installers would be comfortable making a commitment to a discounted price for an extremely extended period of time.
And it's
That
also
by its
the
nature,
It's also the nature of the environment. I mean, they just don't know what to expect out of availability, and
Right.
so. But I think the thing to do is just to talk with CEC and ask them just to see if we can extend the grant and the end date of the grant, which will then, if we can kind of work backwards from there.
It did seem that CDC was open to anything when we spoke with them.
but they seem to be saying, if we want to do this next year, that's fine. And it's not a problem on their end. They were looking to the communities to decide what they wanted to do.
We also need to set up a web page or a Facebook page also so that we can get the word out. And I am willing to work on that anytime anybody wants to get me any of that. Now, Dan and Rich, am I allowed to put that website on the town site as a different department or different page, or should I put that under the energy website?
Let me give that some thought and I'll get back to you as to how best to set that up.
Okay.
That's something we can do. That's some of the ducks we can line up right now. Certainly while we're all sequestered at home. I don't know if Rich could find that email list and if we could start basically developing one. Is it also a possibility to stick little notices into the water bills or something? That this is something that we're expecting to happen in the near future?
Yeah, there's a cost associated with some of that. It's not a huge cost, but I don't think, but yeah, once we had something lined up, that we could look at doing something like that.
Isn't that the purpose of this program? To give us the funds to do things like that? To
Yep.
pay for things like that?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
But can't we also do this through the website? There are some capabilities of sending out like constant contact and all of that, which is free.
So, you know, if Joyce or anybody knows of a community that's a high performing solarized community, and if they've got a website, it would be best to take a look at what they did first, you know, so we don't reinvent the wheel.
We
So
should
if
be
you could
able to
contact
CEC
somebody
about
at
that.
CEC and ask if they've got a high performing community they could recommend that have done some of this outreach, that'd be great.
Okay, I'll
We
do
can
that.
check on that. Mike, have you any opinions on that already?
No, just that it's a good idea, and we'll see. We have a conference call with Lisa next week, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we'll find out from her then.
A question to Dan. What legal status does this ad hoc solarized committee made up of volunteers have vis-a-vis the town of Yarmouth? Does it have the equivalent status of any of the committees, the town's committees? The
Oh, we've never been
problem
down
is,
this road before, so it's an advisory committee to the town. You know, so it exists for advice giving. So now it's kind of moving to a different atmosphere, you know?
Well, legally, the contracts are between the homeowners and the installers. And you're just providing, the committee, solarized committee, is just providing information that's being vetted through the CEC.
what
No,
about the RFP? I mean, who does the installer sign the contract with? does he have any uh, contract with either the CEC or the town of Yarmouth?
No,
With the
it's just
homeowner.
homeowners.
Yeah, with the homeowner.
Well,
CEC does approve the contract though, with the
It's
RFP.
with the proposal process. You have input in designing it for, for specific to our community. So that goes through CEC. And then
it has to
that
be more
allows-
than, it has to be more than just with the homeowner, because the proposers are going to propose essentially, let's say, a cost versus the number of installations. And somebody's got to be able to hold them to that. There won't be any customers at the time, the homeowners at the time they submit their proposal. So I don't know if it's, I guess I'd have to look back at the
Proposal.
information they gave us, but it's got to be between, I suppose, either the town of Yarmouth or CEC to hold them to whatever price they estimated in their proposal, right?
Right, well, I believe CEC administers the contracts as proposed to make sure that contracts that are let are in accordance with what was proposed in the RFP. But the actual contracts themselves are between the homeowners and the installer.
Once it's installed for warranty work and all that sort of thing, right? But as far as getting it for the given price, somebody else has to,
So it's simply a memorandum of understanding between the CEC and the installer that is selected of
No.
what they will be charging, the customers that they do the installations for?
I thought there was some kind of responsibility with the town, because we had to, all that paperwork, when we had to get it approved, we had to go before the Board of Selectmen. I thought that they would have some input into the contract and holding people liable.
I don't think so. Mike?
I don't know, I want to look back at something here.
I think
could
that
be
was the
wrong.
participation that the CEC wanted to have with the committee, the solo coaches, to determine a specific contractual terms or conditions that they thought were applicable to the Yarmouth community. And then they would make sure that those got implemented into any contract or RFP language. When somebody provides a response to an RFP, that response becomes part and parcel of their contract. But they're responding to a CEC request.
My interest in this is to go back to Sandy's proposal about having a website and where it would be, what it would be attendees parallel to it.
All this, but we would establish off of the Energy Committee section, a link to a solarized website. And that would be the site for all that information. So it would direct you off our site to another platform.
And the CEC has a ton of stuff already.
Yeah,
It
might even just go, we can link it to that. So we got to look into it a little bit further, because I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I also don't want to put
Exactly.
things that aren't, legitimate town activities on the town website,
Agreed.
The one that I found on the internet was Solarized North Shore 2020.
Yeah.
And I just sent a link to Mike and Joyce for them to look at. They are definitely not on their town website. They are separate. And it looks like they do it off of a different platform than powered by Squarespace, which I've never heard of. So they might have had somebody design this and do it for them, but.
So I did just look back at the CEC RFP for communities, and it does say clearly that it's CEC that contracts with the installer on behalf of the community. So the legal relationship is between CEC and the installer to govern the terms of the program.
I've got that, Sandy. That does look good.
Is that the Lynn Nahant Swampscott? Joyce?
Yes, well, Salem, Swampscott, Nahant.
Salem. Yeah,
Hmm.
okay.
Well, it seems to me that the people who are
That's all
most
I have.
involved, the solar co-coaches, get a heavy weight on this decision.
Okay,
And also on this website, though, it shows, it's got a homepage with the information. It has the resources, your program events, your news, the team that's actually working on this, and the staying informed and fact sheet. So if you get a website up and running, you can get a good chunk of your information out there so that it can be a communication piece for everybody.
Hmm.
So we should be in touch with Cadmus or Victoria at CEC about the best way to go on this, presumably.
Well, they seemed willing to do whatever we wanted. I think we have to decide what's best for our town. Mike, Steve, solar co-coaches?
Well, I thought I don't know if what's best for our town. What's achievable? How can we maximize our success on this? And I think that personally, I think delaying it till certainly the installations until next April or May would be it. So if we say we want to be able to start installing in April, then we work backwards from there with their timeline there to see what needs to be done when. I can do that.
Hmm.
That would be my recommendation. Shoot for beginning installations April 2021.
Steve, how about you, Steve K?
Steve may have just chased down his dog. I heard his dog.
what
bark.
happened? Did I
Oh,
lose something?
yes, Steve, we were asking
Yeah. I
what
thought I
you
was
thought
answering.
about. Go ahead.
I thought I was answering. I was saying that there's so much in the way of unknown in the next couple of months. And we have high hopes that maybe in May it's going to end. We don't really know that. And a lot of people are going to get very busy doing a lot of other stuff. To go out and do this thing right is what we should do. We are more like facilitators, putting the contract for the installer and getting them together with the homeowner. That doesn't happen overnight. And I think a lot of people have a lot more stuff on their minds right now and going forward. I see it to our advantage, in my opinion, to wait. And like Mike says, work backwards. If we want to start installing in April or whatever, work backwards from there.
Yes, as Susan alluded to earlier, we may have a different emergency superseding the climate one in the minds of an awful lot of people right now.
Yeah, the world is blowing up.
You know, the small businesses that would like to address on the Cape, they're probably not going to be in a financial position this summer to make any of these sorts of decisions.
Hadn't even considered that.
That's really too bad. Yeah.
Well, it's a great opportunity, but I think the timing is awful. Too much unknown.
Okay, well, does anyone else have a comment on this? I mean, I think our solar co-coaches are pretty clear about what they think.
Right.
No matter what we do on this, I think that what we have to do is all the work in the background to get that website up, to get your Facebook up, to get all of this out for communication. That's going to be a big start. And so no matter which way we go, at least if we have that out there, we have some type of communication piece that we can work with.
I agree with Sandy. It would give us a much longer outreach period, mostly by electronic means, but I think that we could even be combining it with work that the Energy Committee is doing itself on other fronts.
I agree with that. Put into place whatever we can do that doesn't require us to go out and knock on doors and assemble large groups of people.
I agree. Don't have to, I agree. We can do it all electronically. I agree. Makes sense. At least we're not sitting on our hands doing nothing.
The implication to me is that it would be asking CEC, since they're willing to do whatever we need, is to go ahead and contract with us and deliver the first funds. So that could pay for the website. And we talked last month about it paying for Zoom
Well,
account.
if we can get on the town website, there would be no charge. However, if we go outside of that, there are free websites that I've worked with before. So we might not really need funding for that unless you want a professional website designer to do it. I don't consider myself professional.
Oh, you are. Come on.
No,
Hey,
we-
I think I
can
hear
handle that.
Steve K volunteering to do the website.
No,
You
we can.
misheard. You
handle it.
misheard.
Don't sweat it. We got that covered.
Okay, well,
Almost.
any,
Joyce?
Yep.
Steve Gavin here. Maybe in terms of educating ourselves or becoming a little, familiar with the contractual end, I would ask Barry, would you feel comfortable showing us your contract for your PV installation and then going through it? And you might have done some negotiation. You had questions, dealings with the installer. Would you feel comfortable bringing that to us? And then, or even a blank one if you have it, and explaining the process that you went through in agreeing to a contract?
Sure. I mean, I'm not sure the contract itself is, if I remember, 40 or 50 pages. I'm not sure how
Whoa.
useful that would be, but I'm happy to describe the process and show you the contract. It's just like,
40 to 50 pages.
Yeah, I don't think you want copies of it.
Tesla has more lawyers than engineers working for it.
Well, moving along.
Okay.
okay, so any final thoughts on that? I guess we've given feedback, but given that it's not officially an energy committee project, it's just that a lot of members of energy committee are involved. I think the solar co-coaches get to decide.
Well, I think at our next call with CEC, we'll hammer it out and come to a final decision there with
Right.
them.
Okay, and we next talk to them a week from tomorrow, right, with a phone conference?
Correct.
What time is that
Okay.
one? You know what time that one is?
10 a.m.?
10 a.m., I think.
They're
morning?
going to be 10 a.m. Wednesday every second week.
Okay.
Okay, so that finishes that agenda item. That 6 o'clock on the agenda that you see item should be by Tom Barron, B-A-R-O-N, not R-Y. On the petitioned article, he did get back to me. I emailed him whether he wanted to speak on this. He did. He also said he wasn't going to give a PowerPoint or a visual explanation. He doesn't seem to be online, and I've been emailing him here since 4:45. The phone number that I had for him is listed as a disconnect, so I wasn't able to reach him this morning. I think he may still be expecting to come in and electronically and address us at 6, but I don't necessarily think we should wait for that. So what I suggest is that we move to the 6:20 members' comments and proposed agenda items and see if Tom comes online by the time we're done that.
Joyce?
Do any of you have comments and or proposed agenda items for future meetings?
Well, I just want to ask one question relative to Tom Barron. Has the town been involved, or are they involved at all in his ideas as far
No.
as closing the course?
No,
What are your feelings on it?
I think he's way overestimating the potential there.
Okay. So in other words, you wouldn't be in favor of the whole thing?
Did Ed Santino, did he?
Yeah, Ed reviewed some of, gave him some information. The biggest problem that we've got is under the most generous recent tax incentive program that was out there before Smart Tariff took over. Our lease revenue maximum at the site was going to be somewhere between $600,000 and $800,000. So that was on maybe a 4 or 5 megawatt display. And I don't know where Tom or how he got his numbers, but it doesn't at all jive with what's going on with the new Smart Tariff program.
Yeah, I think his numbers were a little high, but it seems to be taking something that's given us red numbers to turning us into a positive. However much it is something we certainly should look at.
No, it should be studied, and I don't necessarily have an issue with that. I think, at town meeting this year, there's going to be some hard answers or hard questions that are going to need answers as it relates, because golf is going to be in a financial serious situation. So,
And Dan, from when you talked to the Energy Committee a month or so ago about this, my sense was that the critical obstacle was that at this point, it would take a substation addition to operate at the scale that Tom's proposing, and that under current rules, the developer of the solar farm would have to fund that. But at a global level, there are folks working at the state level to look at imposing cost for expansion of solar capacity in the grid onto the utilities, so it's spread across the rate base.
Well,
and that's not done yet, but
the problem,
I'm trying to figure out how much that's.
Yeah, when you go over 5 megawatts, the engineering work that needs to be done to bring 5 megawatts or more to the grid is pretty significant. That's why a lot of panel arrays are below that, because there's like an expedited engineering activity that goes on. So, but it's not uncommon that if there's any infrastructure improvements that are needed, the petitioner for the project has to pay for that. It's no different than Vineyard Wind. They want to bring power to the shore. You got to factor that into your total carrying cost of the project. So what ends up happening on a very large related project associated with that, the first thing that's going to give is the amount of money that's available to the town to receive as a lease payment. So it's essentially comes down to the bigger you want it, the more that's going to cost us to build it. So something's got to give. And that's typically where we make our monies on the lease agreement. So if you keep it manageable and it's like, I don't know, 5 to 8 acres a megawatt, you stay around 2, 3, or 4 megawatts. Usually the engineering costs and the infrastructure costs aren't too problematic for a project. You get above that, it's a big problem.
That answers that problem.
Well, and
Gotta keep it below.
Eversource, to their own credit, they're allowed to build their own operations, and they're not overly enthused on, I think, on allowing more distributed solar at large capacity coming onto the grid. I just don't see, now that they have access to battery projects and they can make money off of that, I just don't see them. There's so many backlog of projects on their scale that, if you get a smaller one, maybe you can slip that on, but a big one, not so much.
Is this a ground mounted idea?
Yeah, ground mount, yeah.
Because one thing to know about that is the Cape Cod Climate Change Collaborative under Rich Delaney's instruction has done a position paper suggesting that on Cape Cod, we should resist ground mount whenever there's an opportunity instead to do things on rooftops or land that's already been disturbed or whatever, because we need all the land we can for wildlife and trees and all of that. So
yeah, Tom's project was on a landfill cap that has limited availability to do anything with anyways. But one of the other huge institutional problems on that site is it would take about 2 years to reverse the Article 97 activity that was done there. And that's under the best of circumstances. It took us 2 years to get a couple of minor issues changed in our charter. So never mind something in which we got to go out and find makeup space. So for every acre, when we last talked to the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, for every acre we took off from the landfill, we'd have to go out in the community and find 2 acres to conserve. So there's
Good.
that carrying cost that goes with that, because that acreage wouldn't be cheap either to go get that. So there's a lot of different hurdles to getting, because it, you know, if it was a regular landfill with no Article 97 park problems, I'd say, yeah, it's a much easier do, but because of that, it makes it really complicated.
I have a question since we're in the members' comments and so forth, of Susan and also of Dan, the 5 C's recommendation to resist ground mounts when the roofs are available. Surely they're not expecting to apply that to, say, large backyards, are they? And my question for Dan is, do you know what the legal situation is for homeowners or small business owners in Yarmouth to put up ground mounts as long as they are within the offsets?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we, as a town, we adopted the R&D provision of zoning. So there's likely going to be, if you were going to do a ground mount in a neighborhood, some kind of zoning variance that you're going to need, which would probably not be received well in most of the neighborhoods.
Okay.
Yep. And Joyce, the thing I can say is that I'll find the position paper and send that to everybody. And the reason why this is up right now is because in Sandwich, there is an off-Cape, I believe it's an off-Cape business, developer who's trying to buy up any parcels of land that have not been developed and put solar arrays on them, solar farms, on them, solar arrays. So what's a great idea, seemingly, to get as much solar on Cape Cod as we can, it's actually when there is, it could be that this developer just makes a huge amount of profit by buying up little bits of property all over the place and then using that, taking trees down and building. So it's a real
So 5
economic-
C's wouldn't be opposed if trees weren't coming down.
Right.
As I recall, the collaborative statement, it was specifically about clearing forested land for the purpose of
Okay.
solar farming.
That
they
makes more
opposed.
sense. Yeah.
It wasn't about using the equivalent of a landfill site if that were otherwise doable.
And the
Yes.
incentive program doesn't incentivize you to go after greenfield sites anyway. So it's cost prohibitive to do that.
Okay, does anyone else have a comment, proposed agenda item, question?
Yeah, I have a question that I forgot to ask Steve Gavin. When is the CVEC project on the roof of the senior center scheduled to happen?
Yeah, it's under contract. We've looked at the, at least I have, and with a potential installer, looked at the installation, exactly when, and particularly if it's in the current situation, working around there with a number of seniors, that kind of moves the schedule out, significantly to the right.
Because I thought that it might be good to do some of our outreach to the senior community for the Solarize program at the same time that a big solar array was going on the roof of their senior center to,
Show some,
in a very positive, solar in a very positive light.
what may be a good idea, at least at this point in time, would be to create a display, a poster. We have aerial views, we have engineering conceptual illustrations of what it will look like. So if we put that together, in the lobby area, that would be helpful. And then when you meet with people at the senior center on your regular basis, you could point that out to them and explain it to them. Or I could even come down there with you and
Well,
talk
we
to.
don't know when the senior center is going to open again, but
Right.
maybe something could be done
In the interim, sure.
on Sandy's website as well.
Yeah, I think the folks that use the senior center would be most interested in seeing it. And I think the best way to do it would be to have a display in there that we can point out to them. So
Also, let's all remember that with solar installations, most of the work is exterior. So you do have to have an electrician come in for the connection and so forth,
Right.
but most of it is exterior. Maybe seniors could go back to a lovely installation when it reopens.
Yeah, the installation is mainly on the backside of the south southwestern facing roofs, and all of the electrical component installations are back in that area, the inverter and so forth. Then there's of course, the tie-in to the circuit breaker, the feeds into the building. But it takes place out back on the other side of where you would normally walk into the building. We could direct them out there to take, to look at it pre-construction. But as I say, at this point in time, I think it'd be best to have a display that we can present to them.
Right.
Thanks, Steve. Okay, any other questions or comments?
I would like to ask about the information that Mike Duffy had for the 5-year plan. That's still like an internal draft, not to be any presentation and notes or whatever. Is that correct?
That's correct from my standpoint. Joyce?
Sure. Yep.
Okay.
I mean, until there's a vote and it's our official policy, I guess we're discussing it among Energy Committee and friends.
Okay.
And do we have a copy of it? I forget if we've got a copy already or not.
We
Yeah,
do.
it's attached to a Maryland email that came about a day after our Energy Committee meeting last month.
No, I didn't put anything out or ask Sandy to.
I think Mike did.
Oh,
No, Mike sent it to you and you sent it to us.
You want me to send it out to all of the?
That would be helpful.
I will.
That
send
would
it.
eliminate the confusion.
okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, are there any other items we'd like to bring up? I just went over the signees again. I don't see Tom Barron signed in, and I don't have an email from him. So I guess I'm thinking, although it's not his fault if he was expecting to present at 6, that we probably shouldn't add 27 minutes to the meeting until 6, just to hear this, when there is in fact one more Energy Committee meeting before the now May 19th town meeting date.
Yeah, I think he has significant issues that haven't been considered also based on Dan's recent comments. But we should hear him out.
So, because I've got to go, I'd like to propose that we end the meeting now, if you're looking for that.
The chair
second.
could recognize a motion.
Yes, propose a motion.
Second,
All in
Third.
favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you all for doing this, and a big thank you to Sandy, to Dan, and to Rich for making it possible for us to meet.
Yes, thank
Eat
you
well
both.
in captivity.